How we doing today? All right, all right. Daniel, your haircut looks wonderful. He is connecting to the audio now. Your haircut looks great, Daniel. You can't hear me. Maybe
Well, now
I'm
I get
muted.
now. No, it was me. I was
Oh,
getting set up.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. What?
What up? Haircut looks great, dude.
Yeah, short and ready to go.
Yeah, you got like tight on the sides.
Real
Oh,
tight. She went
mad tight.
little high, little tight. Well, I told you the kids cut it first,
Yeah,
and
I
then
saw that.
but the lady messed it up more. So what are you gonna do? It's all right. It's my
Yeah,
aerodynamic hair. I
I like
figured
it.
if I don't train, I should at least have a racing haircut.
Yeah, yes, yes.
You don't need to train. You just do racing haircuts, get fast wheels, get the best bike, and you're good to go.
Okay, there's this guy. Whoops,
Ooh,
what did I do there?
you're
Oh,
a
I covered
magician.
them. Yeah, sorry. There's this guy who I get his missives, his thoughts, like once
Okay.
a day. His name is Seth Godin. He's like a
Yeah.
marketer. You know who he is?
Yeah. And you sent it to me. You sent it to me a few times.
Okay. So he said, I had it yesterday, but it was all about like you can plan, you can plan, you can plan, but it's not in the planning, it's in the doing. It was really appropriate for
Yep.
what you just said. Yeah.
Yep,
So
that
you got
is
to
the
go out there
truth.
and do it.
Exactly. And it actually becomes easier when you stop planning and start doing. Because then
Yep.
you get into it.
Yep. And you start learning like the the applied intent as opposed to like like talking yourself in circles, right?
Yes. Yeah,
Yep.
because you can almost make anything seem to make sense, especially in your training. And
Yep.
sometimes it's affected by how you feel because you are what you bring to the table, right?
Yep.
Um, yeah, it's pretty funny. Wow. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you remember
I'm gonna see if
all
I
this,
can't find it.
all the spreadsheets and stuff we used to
Yeah.
create. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember I used to create more spreadsheets than I did training. That was a good one.
So, so that's what yesterday's was. Oh, here we go. Uh no. His yesterday's was like, have you ever wondered what the wiring about lay or sorry, have you ever wondered what the wiring layout behind the control panels at Abbey Road Studios was like? And it's like,
No,
neither have I.
yeah,
Um, so I'm sure it helps to have everything properly managed, maintained, and arranged. It saves time and effort, but um, that's just simply stalling.
yeah, you got to do it. I mean, you have a plan, you set it forth, and you do it. That's what it
Yeah,
comes down to. Oh, well,
yeah,
that's actually appropriate. It looks like we kind of have a quorum here, so
we do.
we could start talking a little bit. Um, I was, if anyone has questions, as always, drop them in the chat. Um, yes, some people still haven't received their gear. We don't know where it is. You got to ask Sparrow, but it's on its way. But most people should have it by now. But I know that's
Dan,
always the question.
do you have your gear?
No, I don't.
I don't either. So we are in the same boat,
Yeah,
just playing the patient game.
yeah. It's a good thing I delayed my races a little bit, like 2025, or six. All right. So in terms of like planning versus doing, we're going to talk about post race analysis a little bit here. I know a lot of people had races. Dave, did you say 35 or 45 or 42 years of triathlon so far after the race this weekend?
43 consecutive years.
Oh, I was off, but that's sick.
Yeah,
Congratulations. That's amazing.
I think I don't know of anybody in the world who's done more than 43 consecutive years.
That's kind of amazing.
40. I mean, that puts you at, first one 1981.
Correct. Oh,
Yeah, I mean, the first triathlons were taking place in 78, and that was like 12 people on Fiesta Island. So I think you might have it, Dave.
yeah, I think you do. Claim to fame. We're gonna do a spotlight on that for you, for all of
Yeah,
us.
I contacted USA Triathlon. They don't know of anybody who's gone longer.
Oh my gosh. Have you had
So
has there been a USAT that entire time? Like, have you had a USAT membership for that long?
now I had a TriFed membership.
Okay. Yeah, that's right.
The
That's right.
TriFed was the predecessor organization.
Yep.
My USAT number is 1853,
Okay.
which is really it means I was the eight,
18 time.
1853 a
Yeah,
number of
yeah.
triathletes that had ever done a triathlon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're number one in our hearts.
Yeah, I
At
want to
least
say
some,
my
at least
triathlon
somewhere.
idea has like four more digits than yours.
Yes. Crazy, crazy. Well, congratulations. And congrats to everyone that raced this weekend, from Dave to everyone in Oceanside to everyone in Texas. Awesome racing.
Yeah.
We're supposed to talk a bit today about like how you look at a race, like after post race, what we're gonna do. But before we get into that, because I think it might dovetail into a little bit, I got some question spots.
Yep.
All right, so let's start off and just hit it. And we've talked about this a lot, so we don't have to go super deep, but TSS versus kilojoule for training load. What do you use and why?
So TSS is a good measurement. However, it's only as good as the data you're putting into it, and that data is constantly changing. As you continue to evolve as an athlete and grow as a person, not only does your resting metabolic rate change, but your ability to produce force and get into shape and get out of shape is always constantly changing. And because of that variable, I think kilojoules are a more constant and a steadier constant and a more reliable metric to follow. TSS requires an extra hoop to jump through that makes tracking over time a little less accurate.
Yeah, that is perfect. That's exactly how I put it. And kilojoule, like you said, it's constant. So like your kilojoule burn in a race. You know
Yep.
the energy requirement in a race. So you can use that to plan your weeks and months before. Which actually goes to a question I got from an athlete today, regarding like, hey, I have a 6K race, like no, I mean sorry, 10K race in a couple of weeks. If I'm only running about 40 to 45 minutes, is that enough? And typically I would say not exactly. But what we look at with some athletes is like the balance between getting hurt and doing enough work to be able to, the minimum amount of work to do well. Right. And you could do that by looking at kilojoules. So you're not looking at a single workout, like your long run needs to be this long. We're looking at a run on Friday and Saturday and Sunday gets you the kilojoule burn on top of swimming and biking, right? Because your heart and lungs, we always say, don't know the difference between swimming, biking, running, rowing, or anything else for that matter. So you can get the energy expenditure you need and get the aerobic capacity you need from doing other things with minimizing risk.
I would also add to that that we've always played the name that tune game with run miles and run time on your feet to as few as notes as possible because of the pounding effect that happens. I mean,
Yeah.
you're driving forces that are upwards 8, 9, 10 times your body weight if you're going at certain velocities. So there's a real injury component there. And as you age, you just want the ticker to be working, and you want some hardness in the body and the bones, but you don't necessarily need all of it. And then that way it leaves you an opportunity to challenge yourself on race day without necessarily risking anything, but at the same time being healthy at the start line.
Exactly. Dude, this is like all going into other questions that we had this week. So we're just going to roll through and then we can talk about
Love it.
anything we want. All right. Well, Jenna asked to go back. How do you track your
Yeah.
kilojoules? So maybe you want to touch on that real quick.
Yeah. So kilojoules is, gosh, I'm blanking on the formula, but you can also track calories. Calories works pretty in a close approximate to kilojoules. But kilojoules is you should on your bike So did Jenna ask? Jenna has
Yeah.
a bike computer.
Yeah.
So you should have a kilojoule option on, at least on the Wahoo you do. I think on a Garmin, although I've never actually used a Garmin, so I don't know.
It, but
But
it
I,
comes
I
up,
have it
it
on my Wahoo.
comes up on Wahoo and then it'll come through in Training Peaks too. And it's more or less a function of energy expenditure. So if you're in the bike, it uses power and duration to figure out kilojoule burn.
Yeah,
I don't think it uses heart rate. I'm pretty sure, unless you don't have power, it's power and duration is the
no,
way it works, right?
it's power and duration. So it's
Yeah,
it's actually like the actual metrics are watts and seconds.
yeah,
Um, I want to say a kilojoule. I'm not sure of the components of it, but it's watts, and the time factor is of on a second. So, and then it's so many watts if you know your total kilojoule burn. Um,
yeah,
it is a
yeah,
good predictor as well for
yeah.
racing.
I mean, to give you guys some reference, when Andy and I sometimes we go out on a day and we'd be like, all right, we're gonna burn 3,500 kilojoules today, which is a pretty hardy ride. Or like Ironman, what is it? Like for the entire race, we'd be like, oh, we want to burn 4,500, which is like you're smoked. And sometimes that takes 6, 7 hours. Sometimes that takes 10 hours. It just depends the number of watts you put in. And so like, and remember that one time we went out for like that 9, 10 hour one. It was like we were just cruising the whole time, but it was just about burning the calories, and we're just biding our time more than anything else.
Yeah, I'll give
So
you a good frame of reference here. So, like for a half Ironman, I'll burn anywhere between 1,800 and 2,300. So, one time I burned 2,400 calories, and it's the same amount of miles,
yeah,
56 miles, right? One time I went out and I rode the Ironman course in Hawaii, on a training day, and it was the same kilojoule burn as when I raced. So almost like it was scary, right? But this
yeah,
is where the time factor versus the wattage factor. So I wasn't pushing anywhere near as many watts, but I went and did the course, and I was out there for just longer than I would be on race day. And because of that time component, the actual kilojoule burn was really close to what it
yeah.
would be on race day. So for me, in an Ironman, I'll burn as low as 3,800 calories, as high as 4,400
Yeah,
calories or kilojoules. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Because like in most of like Training Peaks and everything else, 1 kilojoule is equivalent to 1 calorie, right? Or kilocalorie,
it's
I
really
believe.
close.
Yeah, it's real close.
Yeah,
All right. So kind of again going back, someone
yep.
asked about running and like that all that stuff. Here's a question. Uh, can you get the same benefit if you split your long run into 2 sessions in a day? What is it different? What happens? Is there some benefit?
Okay, so couple trains of thoughts here. Um, I'm going to give you the potentially unpopular answer, and the answer is no. You cannot. Can you get close? Yeah, kinda. You can get kind of close. So there are coaches out there who, like just in run training, will say, okay, you're going to get your weekly mileage, and you get one run a day. A really great coach, actually, coaches at CU in Boulder. His name is last name is Wetmore, Coach Wetmore. He believes that you should do all of your running in one run. So if you are hitting 100 miles uh, over the week, you have 7 or 6 runs to do it, and that's it. Uh, that is he's a little bit off, or he's a little bit of a departure from what the other runners in the running community will do. When you want to increase the intensity of your workouts, it's you can split them. But in terms of increasing the duration, in terms of like what is physiologically happening to your body at X number of minutes, the only way to do it and to find out is to do it. And this is what we jumped off with the whole uh, of Zoom today was you just got to go and do it. So if you know the marathon is going to take you 3 hours, well, certain things happen at 2.5 hours that you don't know until you go experience them. So the
Yeah.
short, maybe the unpopular answer is no.
Yeah.
Can you potentially do it? Yes.
There's a time and place for everything in your
Mhm.
training. But like Andy said, and you guys all have experienced this, hour one and hour two in the run feel very different. Even and hour three feels different. And it's the same thing on the bike. Like what happens to your body physiologically at hour three is very different than happens at hour five and six and seven and eight and nine and whatever you want to say.
Mhm.
It's very different and it's hard to replicate it. And it's training your body, but it's also training your mind and building up that experience to understand what's going to happen and be able to deal with it. Experience lets you learn how to deal with things. So,
So,
oh, go ahead.
with that being said, Daniel, so let's say I have never done an Ironman before. I'm comfortable doing a marathon and riding my bike 100 miles, but putting them together with a swim before, uh, like if I'm thinking like this race is going to take me 15, 16 hours, are you saying I should go train for 15, 16 hours to see what's happening in my body?
No, because what's happening on a weekly basis goes back to what we are talking about kilojoules and energy expenditure. And you can simulate that over the course of 3 to 5 days and get the same thing because you have cumulative load and cumulative stress going on throughout each week, which you don't have in a race.
Okay, secondarily, same question. Would you say that there is a time barrier in terms of like exposure that if you get to a certain number of rides or runs or activities beyond X hour, what would you say that that tipping point hour mark is?
Individual sport or overall? What do you mean?
Let's do both.
All right. So, um, on the bike, it really depends on how long you're riding for, but I'll use Andy as the example, which is the easiest, right? We look for, like he said, he's about 4,400 to 4,800 max kilojoules in an Ironman, right? For the bike,
4,400 max.
the 4,400 max for the bike, right? We'll look for it, and again, this is at Andy's level, but it's applicable. 6 to 10 rides above 4,400 kilojoules,
Mhm.
roughly. That's about right. On the run, we're looking at 4 to 8 runs above the energy burn that he needs for an Ironman run. That sounds about right, right? I want to say.
Yeah, what we'll do for the runs too is like you can always do an hour bike ride before,
Yeah. Or you could
2 hour
do
bike ride. Yeah.
or you could do what I would do. I would do a really long swim. Like I do a 10K
Yep.
swim and then go run,
Yep.
which helps a lot. And Andy and I were a little different. Physiologically, I had to split up my long bike and my long run by a day. It just my long run turned to trash. So like most people ride long on Saturday, run long on Sunday, which if you could run long during the week, that's even better because you could ride twice on the weekend, which is so much better for people. That's where you have more time usually. And you can like um, create more load. But like I would have to ride long on like Thursday and run long on Saturday until I got really resilient. And you got to play with those things because I wasn't getting the work I needed. And that's why I'd swim before too. Um, but those numbers are pretty good in terms of what you need, like kind of training load wise. Um, yeah,
Yeah. Hour wise, you know,
it
uh, kill
depends.
kilojoules are a more accurate measurement because not all runs and not all rides are the same.
Yeah.
Um,
The,
that's why yeah, that's why you
the,
time your runs versus miles on runs. Not
yeah.
every mile is the same. I don't know. I'd say like 5.5, 6 hours
Yeah.
on
And
the
then,
bike.
yeah, at least for most, for you, for most people, it's probably actually a little more because their race is taking them 5.5 to 6 hours. So I can't do the math in my head, but I want to say it's about most people need about 20% more. I'll call it time or distance volume than the actual race demands on their long workouts to get the kilojoule burn, typically. Right.
Makes
I think
sense.
that's a close. The other thing which a lot of you guys can do when you talk about running, right? And you'll see this in your training. If you train with us, I'm sorry. If you see, you'll see it in our training. It's like you'll have a bunch of long runs that are like, that are like 2 hours long, right? And then you'll have three runs 3 days in a row that are each 50 minutes. So that is more than your 2 hours, right? And then what happens is you create that load and stress over 3 days. It's not as bad. It's almost like splitting your runs by day, like morning, afternoon. You split it by 2 to 3 days, and then you come back and then you up your volume on your long run day too. And it kind of helps. It gives you your body a break, because running long every week for 6, 8, 10 weeks in a row is really hard, really difficult. So you can break it up that way too, which is awesome.
Okay. So similarly, going along this vein of trying to equate different variables and how to look at different metrics to get a response. So do you change anything when you ride indoors versus when you ride outdoors? Like if you know the ride, like, oh, it's a 3 hour ride. Are you saying like, oh, 3 hours outside is the same as 2.5 hours inside? Like, where are you on that one?
Um, I'm a bad person to ask that question. All right, unpopular answer. No, I don't change anything. I
I don't
just
change
do it. I
anything.
just do it.
You
And
just do it.
you
Since
just
three
do it.
hours is three
Yeah.
hours.
The thing that affects this is if like you don't have a really good fan, if it's really hot, like the cooling effect is a real deal. And just the ability to manipulate the bike on the road makes it very different inside. I would never ride 3 hours indoors either, though. So that's a whole nother story. So, but we don't need to get it. But if you have a 3 hour ride, you just do it. That's the way it
Yeah,
goes.
it's yes,
Yeah.
yes. So things that can make it a little bit more tolerable, like Daniel said, proper fuel, proper hydration, and proper cooling.
Yep.
If you really want to, if if you really want to test and expand your capabilities, you start with a fan, slowly reduce the fan, and then uh, after subsequent rides and certain biological parameters are being met and your recovery is good, you slowly take away the fan. Because what that does is it will increase your blood plasma volume,
Yeah.
and having uh, more blood is better for performance. So
That's the
uh,
medical explanation for
it's very difficult,
it.
very hard to do, mentally, physically, super taxing. Um, you, the key component, if you do want to implement this, I would encourage you to either reach out to me or Daniel. And the biggest, if you don't want to reach out to us and you want to try this, once you stop sweating, that is a key indicator that your body is starting to shut down. So you have to listen to that, and you should probably pull the pin on the workout.
Yeah.
The farther into it you go, after you've stopped sweating and you have no cooling aspect, the more trouble you're going to get into.
Yeah. All right. Similar but different. I heard it's okay to miss a workout or two a week. That you should be aiming to hit 80% of your workouts.
Okay.
I like going all green, but there's times I'm tired. Is it okay to skip that run or whatever? You want to start or you want me to?
All right, I'm going to start.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to be really unpopular after this thing. Okay, so um, if it's okay to make 80% of your workouts, um, I'm just going to program you more workouts
Yeah.
so you can miss them and do all the work necessary. No, if it's in there, you should do the workout.
Yeah. But don't write them just to write them.
No,
Yeah.
no, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, so
Yeah.
does every workout need to be awesome? No, it's not possible. but you do need to have an 80% compliance rate on, okay, so this is the binary way to track a workout without training peaks and without like a extensive log. Like you can literally just have like a piece of paper with a calendar on it. That day you can either give yourself a plus for doing everything necessary and hitting the values and getting a good stimulus and the appropriate, like executing the workout the way that it was supposed to be, the way that it was intended. You get a 0 if you did the workout, but kind of were just really off and just you did it, but you just, it wasn't great. And then you get a minus if either you didn't do the workout or if it was supposed to be a recovery run and you went too hard, or if it was supposed to be an interval run and you went and did a recovery run. That's kind of a minus. So you have to have 80% pluses on your calendar if you want to reach your goals. So I'm not sure about the whole do 80% of your workouts tag. There could have been just crossing of the wires in terms of what that was, that information.
That's like a general triathlon thing. It's okay. It's okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, it's not.
It's called fallacy.
What? No, that's not a thing, is it? Is that a thing?
It shouldn't be a thing.
Okay, so I'll tell you. All
right, so go.
I probably missed three, maybe 5 workouts a year.
Yeah. All right. Here's one for you. When is it okay to miss a workout? If you're sick or you're hurt. I hate when people train when they're sick. It's my it's my least favorite thing because but you're different because you can sleep 12 hours a night and you do this for your job and you can rest when you're not training. Everyone else has other stuff to do. So what happens, everyone who's sick or hurt ends up training for 3 weeks sick and then doesn't get better at training and doesn't get better physically. Get better and then train again. That's one. If you're hurt, that's the other. If you feel like crap and you kind of want to move stuff around, it's okay to do that or just do it easier or lighter. The one thing we typically don't do is look backwards. So if you miss it and you move on, right? But here's some quick, I'm going to do this in my head, so it might be wrong math for you, okay? Let's say you swim 4 times a week to make it easier, okay? You miss one swim workout a week, all right? All right? So in a month, you've missed a week of swims.
Ooh, because that's 4 missed swims, 4 swims a week. That's a week.
So you could just take off for a week at that point. So then in 4 months, right? What did you miss? You miss a month of workouts. In a year, you've missed 3 months of swim workouts, just missing 1 a week. That adds up pretty quick.
Okay. All right. So the dichotomy of this. Okay, the dichotomy here. So totally agree with what you're saying. And but this is also why we talk with our athletes. This is why we customize and individualize a plan for you. This is not, here's our plan, you must fit in it based off of your training background, your age, your goals,
your life,
your life, your time, what you have going on. So what Daniel's saying here is like, okay, we got, in that example, we have 4 swims, you miss them 1 a week. You can see how that snowballs. But if 4 swims don't work for you, we wouldn't then put them in your plan.
Yeah.
So once we work out, we're like, this is why you have coaching. Like, we work with you to formulate the right plan for you. And this is where feedback and a feedback-oriented plan is paramount. If you're an older athlete and you need more time to recover, we're not just going to say, this is the plan. We're going to just square peg, round peg, square hole. Yeah, right, whatever that is, right? Yeah. So, like, communicate. And you should be able to get it. It should be, with the right plan, it should be possible to have an almost all green month.
Yeah. I mean,
in
Chris,
trainings.
Chris, who's on the call, is a good example of this. He works a lot. I mean, you can see he's at work right now. Um, right? See that? But like we know he has certain days that he has completely off, nothing, no responsibility, and then he can recover on other days. So we load up days appropriately. That's the way it goes. Like I always
Yes.
tell everyone, and Chris will give me a thumbs up on this. The most important thing is figuring out your life and your schedule that fits into it. Once we do that,
Yeah,
it's just kind of like fixing as we go and kind of fine tuning.
totally. I think that's what Scott was alluding to
Yeah,
in his
exactly.
text and his message. Like,
Yeah,
okay, so if I know it's a higher intensity day, I want to have the energy and the excitement to go and execute the workout and be able to move my body, my muscles fast enough to be able to meet the demand of the day and not be so bogged down with fatigue that I can't actually move fast enough. I can't go fast enough and meet the ask.
yeah,
So we would make it so like you have the right ramp up into a more intense day and the right recovery coming off the intense days. So it's not about missing workouts. It's about dialing in the right framework, intensity, timing, frequency, all these things that fit into your life.
yeah. All right,
Yeah.
so Pat, that's perfect. So going along with this, we got a question about aging athletes, right? I'm older, I'm 64, 65, 55, it doesn't matter, but I try to race like I'm 30 and I'm sore all the time. What adjustments do I need to make? I mean, this is a really big question, but we could boil it down, I think, pretty quick.
Yeah. If you're
So
sore all the time, so hopefully your soreness
you're
is
doing it right.
gradiated.
No, no, no.
It's gradiated. Like, why are you sore? Is it just because you have an extreme amount of like residual fatigue that's systemic, or do you have localized acute uh, soreness that's like, oh, my bicep hurts because I did bicep curls, or I was climbing out of the saddle a lot. That's different than the whole systemic fatigue. I think you got to differentiate between the two. You can push the button too many times, um, and get systemic fatigue, and like you can have heightened localized fatigue because your nerve endings are starting to get frayed, and like you get really sensitive. So you could be overcooking it just a bit. And I'd like your quality workouts to be a little bit more quality and your recovery workouts to be a little bit more recovering. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
that
as you
that's
get,
kind of, yeah.
I mean, so there's a few categories here. One, listen to your body. Two, create your programming appropriately with everything. And you said timing, intensity, duration. Like we talk about, some athletes, especially older athletes, benefit from 2 days off a week, or a
Yeah,
second day that's just a swim, or
yeah.
4 days on. I mean, a lot of our, like, I know the athletes I coach, you'll see when you start off, you're like 3 days on, 1 day off, 3 days on, 1 day off. Then you go to 4 days on, 1 day off, and it goes to like 4, 1, 3, 2. And we kind of move it around based on building up that resiliency. So all those things matter. And then the other thing that matters a lot is like, what are you doing for yourself? Are you eating well? Are you sleeping well? Are you taking care of your body? And that's really what it comes down to.
If you find that you're not adapting to the work, um, it's time to take a look inside, look under the hood. And I would encourage you to get some blood work done and have a
Mhm.
real professional look at what's happening. Um, there are some quick answers that can be very easily attended to. Some of the key biomarkers that I would look for would be your iron. Are you anemic or iron deficient? That can be a really big player. Vitamin D. Are you getting enough vitamin D? Because that helps with a lot of regenerative capacities within the body. Um, Yeah, and then what does your diet look like? But those are probably my two biggest ones are vitamin D and iron, and then maybe secondary level would be like vitamin B, magnesium, and there's maybe some vitamin C.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Some slightly quick hitters, maybe not. I've been using Infinite for years. What do you think about the high carb fructose blend, and what's going on with ketones? Everyone's talking about them.
Okay. So I have the high carb fructose blend with Infinite, and I've used both, like the custom blend and the high carb blend. The science is very good nutritionally. If you have basically like different ways to receive a high carbohydrate um, fueling source. You could have glucose, fructose, sucrose. And if all of the glucose receptors are full, there is another receptor in fructose that can uptake and then enhance the 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 total grams of carbohydrate that your body is able to metabolize. If you just use a singular glucose fueling source, you can teach it and coach it and grow it, but it does have a capacity. It does have a total limit possibilities. When you go glucose and fructose together with the high carb blend with Infinite, you can have a higher concentration of carbohydrates that you are able to metabolize. The key numbers here, you have to talk in grams of carbs. So grams of carbohydrates, you can get up to 120 that you could potentially metabolize. But if you do not train it, it it, it doesn't matter. So we say in the endurance space, it used to be between 60 and 90 grams of carbs were absorbable. When you use two different pathways between glucose and fructose, you can get up to 120. There's real value there. You do need to coach it up and teach it up in terms of your body. The one caveat when you go with a dual source fueling carbohydrate system is that it's sweeter. It's a lot sweeter. So you can turn the sweetness down and it's still going to be way sweeter than the highest sweetness frequency on the custom blend. If that makes any sense, awesome. If it doesn't, I'm sorry, I just confused you. So ketones, if you want to go with ketones, so basically like once you get more and more in tune with your body, you can work at different heart rates and different heart rates. Sorry about that. Different heart rates are, did you hear my dog barking?
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So at different heart rates, you have to use different fuel sources, more or less. Once you can get your heart rate a little bit lower, you can race on fat. And fat has the highest amount of energy potential within the body. So if you use fat as a source, you can use to race at, then you more or less have an infinite amount of calories to race on. You will run out of carbs if you race long enough and hard enough. And the lights go down, lights go out. It's really interesting when it happens. If you can get strong enough to do it and you want to experience it, get into a safe place and do it. It's a very enlightening experience. It's similar to, I have never done like ayahuasca or anything, but it's pretty spiritual. The shades go down. It's pretty awesome, but not awesome at the same
Yeah.
time.
I would never recommend doing it, but everyone should do it.
I do it to myself.
Yeah.
It probably like 3 or 4 or 5 times a year.
Yeah.
It takes some time to recover from. Well, okay. So speaking of recovery, when you have a higher carbohydrate blend that you're able to absorb, not only are you able to output more work, but the recovery is better. And so the fueling source is a little bit steadier and you can recover from work a little bit better. That's why you're seeing more people go towards it. Now, when you work with ketones, the work rate has to be less, but you're able to go farther. If anyone's had a DEXA scan, they can tell you basically how many uh, uh, grams of stored glycogen you have in your body to use versus stored fat. And it is exponentially higher. And then when you look at what's happening with your body, I think it's like 100 and no 348. No, maybe it's 148, 138 ATP are produced through uh, fat metabolism versus 38 ATP are produced through glycolysis. And it's even less for the phosphagen system. It's like 1 to 1. Okay, that's what I got.
All right.
I'd have to look at the actual numbers to go through it with you, but it's fat, infinite energy, but you just can't go as intense. As soon as you go more intense, you're going to use glycogen.
And when you use ketones, that helps with that.
It helps you, helps it drive towards the fat metabolism first.
Yeah.
But if you go too hard or if you go too fast and you access the glycolytic and glycogen system, glycolysis, then you're not burning fat anymore. You're burning glycogen. And then, yeah. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All right. So we're talking about carbs, protein, and fat. What do you think about it for like your regular everyday diet?
Okay. So
big question.
One last thing on the ketones. Yes, ketones work great if you are on a recovery day and you need to just go and ride. They work great.
It's not when you're doing your zone 4, zone 5 work. It changes the game a little bit.
Totally. All right.
Okay. I didn't know that actually. That's interesting.
Yeah, you can get away with like even fasted riding, which I do not recommend. Which you do actually, Daniel. You do that.
I do it all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're teaching your body to use the natural fat source.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so
a good way to do that too is, let's say you want to do that, is if you ride in the morning, you don't eat for the first hour or so of the ride or 2 hours of the ride. If you have like a more than 2 hour ride, because you just fasted all night and then you ride for 2-3 hours and then you start eating about an hour or 2 hours in, and that works. It's pretty good, and it's just training your body. You can't be going hard then. That's all warm up work.
So holistically, grams of protein, carbs, fats. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, like what's the proportion that you should be aiming for? Which this is a tricky question to answer, but not really.
So, do you have the answer?
No. But what I have a general answer.
Okay.
You can go if you'd like.
All right. So, for all the athletes, that's everybody here. You should be looking at 1.6 to 2.0, 1.5 to 2.0 grams per kilo of body weight for protein.
Yeah.
Almost multiply that by like 4 to 8 times for carbs. And then the remainder is your fats.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
So I'm like, so if you're gonna break it out in like into a plate, I'd say like over half my plate is carbs. Over a quarter is protein, and then the rest is fats.
Yeah, I mean, my recommendation on this is the same I've had probably my whole life, is moderation is key for everything. as long as you're eating balanced and you're not eating good. What do we talk about? Fast foods, Andy, right? Champions don't choose whatever.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't choose whatever. You eat fast foods. You eat foods that make you fast. You don't go to In and Out and then go run a marathon. It doesn't work. Although I did eat a taquito and a big bite from 7-Eleven before a half marathon once. I threw up
How'd that
everywhere.
go?
I threw up everywhere. I ran fast though, but I threw up everywhere. But moderation is key. Balance is key. Contrary to what the general public in the past would tell you, carbohydrates are not your enemy um, at all. Um, and just like Andy said, it's like because of your training, over half of your plate is going to be carbs, right? And like a quarter or more is protein, right? And that's really a good measurement. And you got to think about protein. Like I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole, but it doesn't all have to be like meat and steak. Like there's other ways to get protein, and you should look into those ways too because it can help. It's very helpful, and it's not as taxing on your digestive system. So something to think about. All right, we got two more question spots, and then we could talk about stuff if we want. Um, okay, first, not easier one, but it's one we talked about. Finesse tempo trainer thoughts and what's the ideal tempo? Because there's a balance between, you know, picking up your tempo so much and losing form.
Yep. I love Finesse tempo trainers. They're fantastic. They're actually a really difficult tool to work with. Not mechanically, like the numbers, turning it on, turning it off, setting it. That's actually pretty straightforward. Very easy. Excuse me. What makes it difficult is if you're at all stressed and you aren't ready to work with it, it'll drive you bananas. Just trying to keep up with it. If it's set too high, it's really difficult. And then you tune it out. So key is like using it in moderation. Wow, there's that word again. And then also like having it be really applicable to your stroke and your tempo. I would love to see everybody get below 2.0. If you can get below 2.0, then we're really starting to work. 1.99, I'll take it. Really good stroke rate for me is like right at 1.5 to 1.6. Katie Ledecky, she's a really good swimmer. If you don't know who she is, check her out. She'll be in Paris this year racing. She's got a lot of medals. She's really good. Her stroke tempo is 1.35. I actually think her stroke would work really well for open water.
Yeah, great.
I think she'd be great open water. Katie Grimes, who is an open water swimmer, she made the Olympic team in Paris. I would say her stroke rate's right there. Super high. 1.3, 1.4. But I know that her and her coach, Ron Aiken, they've really worked on her tempo, making sure that it is appropriate for her stroke. And she may not be 1.3, she might be like 1.4, 1.5, but it's appropriate for her. And they had to work on it and have it just so she wasn't just spinning to keep it there. And they work on it all the time. And most elites do work on their stroke tempo a lot.
Does your stroke tempo, would it change if you have a different stroke? Like let's say you have like a low stroke versus or like a more balanced stroke, would your tempo change?
So your tempo is naturally going to be higher when you have better balance in the water and you are symmetrical. But you could still have a pretty high tempo with a loping stroke. It just isn't symmetrical, right?
That's fair.
But if you're always measuring left hand to left hand or right hand to right hand, it shouldn't matter.
That's true.
Right? There'll be a discrepancy between if you're going to measure the cycle, but both the two arms, like half a cycle, there'll be a discrepancy, but in a full cycle, it should be the same.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of, agreed. Speaking of cadence and tempo, what's the deal with, should your stroke tempo change from a pool swim to open water swim?
You should practice it in the pool and apply it to the open water. It needs to be higher in the open water, but a great place to practice it is at practice in the pool. You'll
Yeah.
have clear line of sight. You have space to operate and an obvious ending point.
Yeah.
So the more you can drive towards it in the pool, the more applicable and usable it becomes in the open water.
Yeah, but it becomes natural. It becomes habit.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So speaking of tempo and cadence and all this other stuff, what about low cadence intervals on the bike? Should you train them? What should they be? Best way to train them? The question seems like it's coming from someone that does a lot of this stuff inside, but this is applicable to everything. So go.
All right. So let's go over a few key basics here. The higher cadence you have, the higher heart rate you're going to have.
Yeah.
Okay. Higher cadence, higher heart rate. They work together. Lower cadence, lower heart rate. So what does a low cadence do? A low cadence puts more torque on the muscle to create more, to make, think of it as like lower cadence, higher torque,
It's a
better
high muscle
chance to
activation.
create more muscle fibers, right? Hypertrophy.
Yeah.
The higher cadence, you're activating the same muscle, keeping it long, and you're not necessarily driving for hypertrophy. You're driving for muscular adaptation and power, right? Because there's a tempo and a speed component to it. With lower tempo, more strength oriented. Strength, it involves torque. Power involves speed. So think speed, power, high tempo. Think strength, torque, low tempo. You want both. You want to be able to drive a high amount of uh, strength through the pedal stroke, and you want to do it quickly. But you need to work both to be able to do it. Yes, I love low cadence work.
Yeah.
I also like high cadence work. Most of your racing is going to be done at about 80, maybe 90. I
Okay.
don't know how many people are racing above 90 in a time trial and an Ironman.
Not many.
Can you?
No, not many at all. No, no way. I'm like 75 to 80 or so.
Okay, I'm like
I
80 to 82.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's low. I
maybe
am did
78 to 82.
I am Arizona at 100. That's amazing. Well, so
Whoa.
is it too much? I don't know. How'd you
So,
do?
no,
No, it's not. It depends on you. Like that's really what it comes down because everyone's physiology is a bit different, and it's kind of like in the pool. So and Andy, you tell me if you agree or not with this. In the pool, the more you kick, right, the more aerobic it becomes, right? Right? It becomes way more aerobic, the work. And it's the same thing when you are on the bike and you're high cadence, it becomes more aerobic. And so if you can handle that better and keep your power high, you're good to go.
I
Or was I
don't
off?
know about that in the pool.
Oh, really?
So when I go to my legs, they only last a little. Only I can't go to them the whole time.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
It's because they're demanding so much oxygen,
Yeah.
um, and it's such a big muscle that they're saying, "Oh my gosh, we need a lot of this O2," and it pulls it away from my arms. Um, I can go more aerobic with less legs.
Maybe that's what I meant. You need more O2, and I was equating that to aerobic. So yeah, I got
Yeah,
you. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So I would say going to the legs is like low cadence.
Yes, yeah, yeah. That's what I meant. I said it the wrong way. Sorry.
Yeah, like think of this like just add an implement in the pool. Add
Yeah,
fins, the stroke rate slows
yeah,
because you're
yeah,
driving the legs to your leg driven stroke. At that point, can you uh, keep your cadence up with fins? Then it's like, oh, then you're really kicking butt.
yeah, yeah.
So same on the bike. I would work both, but it has to be purposeful and deliberate.
Yeah.
If you can race an Ironman at 100 cadence, then we may just be shifting it. So, like, let's say I race an Ironman at 80 and you race it at 100. When I do low cadence work, I'm at 55, 60. Maybe your quote low cadence work is at 75, 80. for a little
Yeah.
while, or 70, 75, until you can get lower, lower, lower. The lower you go, the more torque necessary to turn the crank. So more strength development, the lower you can go. So you just might have a bigger sliding scale, a more of a sliding scale. You might be able to go 140 RPM and 55 RPM, whereas I can only go like 55 RPM and like 110 RPM. I'm not quite good enough to keep. I've seen some high cadence work in the 120s, but man, I'm
It's
like
hard.
bouncing on the saddle, and I'm a hot mess.
Jack, look what I treated myself to. I mean, all that is I mean, that's
Oh, but
Hey now, so yeah, that's my take on that. Hopefully that makes
Yeah.
sense. Low cadence, lower heart rate, more strength, more torque. High cadence, higher heart rate, more power, more speed.
Yeah. And to Scott's
If,
point, sorry.
if you can do both, then you're going to be a more adaptable athlete, and you're going to be more prepared for different things in a race.
Yeah, and like to Scott's point, like lower cadence, you need to put out bigger numbers on the bike a lot of times because it becomes a torque issue, right? And how can you do that? You can do it on flats and go to a bigger gear, but a good way to do it is you go climb a hill, right? That's just natural. Think about when you're going up a hill, your cadence typically drops a little bit and you're putting out bigger numbers. And think about when you're going downhill, you have a top end that you end up at because of the fact that you spin out, but you don't have enough gears. You can't create enough torque.
So last part of this total equation, because it's give and take, is the last part of that is how will it affect my run? Well, if you have a neurological pattern you're starting to establish at 100, then that neural pattern is going to continue on to the run. It's going to be a high cadence, high turnover run. If that neural pattern is suppressed and lowered to 65, you have a slower cadence. It's going to be harder to turn that cadence up on the run. So there's a dichotomy here. Like you want that fine balance because the race doesn't end after the bike. You have to continue to run. And how does it affect? If you're always driving low cadence, high torque, there's a real spillover into your run, and it can leave you depleted for your run.
Yeah.
It requires more glycogen as well.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Looks like one more question. How often in a week? What types of intensity and threshold? I'll let you answer this, but I'll start off with saying it depends where you're at in your training cycle. It depends on where you are as an athlete. It depends when your races. It depends what you can handle versus not handle. That's really what it comes down to. Wait, hold on, Dave. Where are you going, dude? Oh, you can't hear
So
us.
I have a hard time with this one.
San Diego.
Oh, fun in the sun. Let's go.
Yeah, college triathlon nationals are in Mission Viejo.
Yeah. Every year, right around this time. Super fun.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right, enjoy. All right, Potts, go.
Okay. Is Derek asking about how often? It's talking about low cadence?
No,
is he talking
just all intensity threshold, like zone 2, zone 3, sub threshold, VO2.
Okay.
Which again, it completely depends.
Totally depends.
He's talking
low
about
cadence work.
low cadence work. All right, cool. Perfect.
Yeah.
And what's the intensity threshold? Yeah. Yep.
Simple answer. Once a week.
Yeah.
And intensity's high.
Yeah.
And you can do lower intensity and low cadence work. Why? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I've done it. It's like, okay. I would prefer you go higher intensity, low cadence.
Yeah, but you could do like high zone 2, like zone 3 cadence work, like when you're climbing. And that's more like an aerobic work with some muscular adaptation stuff, kind of.
Yeah.
It's not as useful though.
Less useful, but it is still, I mean, like if you just don't have any capacity to handle low cadence, high intensity work that week for life reasons, and you want to do a recovery ride with some low cadence, yeah, it not as valuable, but good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like once or twice a week.
Yeah.
Like it depends how often you're riding also. If you're riding three
Yeah.
times a week, once a week is plenty. You're riding 7 times a week, maybe twice a week,
Yeah.
maybe once. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that looked like every question, but that took a long time. Gosh darn it. But maybe real quick, we can put a bow on. A lot of people race this weekend. I wanted to do analysis, but I don't have anyone's files. You can put a bow on like when you finish a race, um, how do you measure how it went? Like what do you look for? What do you talk about? And what's next?
Um, so I hate the woulda, coulda, shoulda game. I
Yeah.
usually cross the line and I kind of know. If it takes a lot of time to know how the race went, I think you're kind of digging. And you should you should kind of know like maybe didn't ride quite hard enough, but man, I ran good. I think the total sum, maybe I gave away a minute to gain a minute. It might be a push. I try to evaluate in segments, um, learn from the mistakes, try not to repeat the same mistakes, go ahead and give yourself an opportunity to make new ones. And then like my evaluation is like, uh, did I get the most out of my preparation? Whatever that prep was. Um, if I was ultimately prepared and turned over every rock, I should do pretty good. If I were minimally prepared and like just kicking off the year, just to start to like get things going and get motivated to improve. Like look at what you're putting into it. That's kind of my
Yeah.
evaluation.
I mean, we're going to take a step back and call you a liar for a second.
Yeah.
If you made money, it was a good day. If not,
Well, okay.
no,
Are we talking about me or are we talking about people?
I'm messing with you. All right, so I think
Yeah.
Andy hit on something really
Yeah.
important
I
there.
usually, dude, come on.
Yeah,
If I didn't like race to my potential, but I made a ton of money, I was pumped. Come on.
yeah, yeah. All right, but for everyone else, I
Right.
think Andy hit the nail on the head. Like we can dive into numbers, we can overanalyze, we could play woulda, shoulda, coulda. We could have all of our excuses in the book. There's one things that matters. How did you come to the table on race day? One, what was your prep? Like Andy said, you know in your prep what you should be able to do in the race. There should be no doubt. Chris, if you have any doubt, like you just did, him and I just did our he filled out race like plans for races later in the year. Like it's not a surprise. Like you show up and you know what's going to happen because you've done it 100 times before in your training, right? Like it's simple. So if you prepared properly, you know what should happen. So then you could just look at it and did it happen or not. The other thing is your mental game. Did you show up excited, happy, or did you show up with excuses and ooh, the water's going to be cold or it might be windy today and all these stupid things that people talk about that don't matter? Like bring the right mental game. And if you show up with that, it doesn't matter. Like have a great day out there, celebrate the day. That's where I look at it. It's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
simple, very simple.
Your racing does need to be a celebration.
Yeah.
If you're putting a lot into it, uh, this is your reward. Um, it should be enjoyable based off of your metrics of what you equate enjoyment to.
Yeah. And
Um, if you think just going and just pummeling yourself is super fun, then just go get after it.
yeah,
You know? Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you are what you bring to the table, right? That's what it comes down to. If you come with a positive attitude, like this is gonna be awesome because I'm gonna demolish myself, it's gonna be great. If you're like, this sucks, it's gonna suck. Like this is the way it goes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a real simplified answer. You could dive in a lot deeper, but I think that really covers it. So that's what I got. Any other questions or thoughts? Anyone? Anyone? Anyone?
Okay.
Chris, we got a code red in room 425. Get on it, bro. All right. That's all I got. Dave, have a great flight. Enjoy Collegiate Nationals. Love it down there. Super fun. Everyone else, have a great day. Congrats to everyone that raced this weekend. Everyone's coming up to race. Make sure you update the team calendar so we can add you to all the events so we can do stuff together. It'd be awesome. And post pics once you get your gear and make everyone else pissed they didn't get theirs yet. It'd be awesome. And I can get 30 emails about it. All right. That's what I got.
All right.
The art and the science is in the doing. So go out and do it. Peace.
Cheers.